Well, if you'll come with me, you'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too.
You float too!
A Stephen King podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 11 of We All Float Down Here, a Richard Bachman podcast. I'm Simon.
And I'm Oscar.
And today we are talking about Thinner. Now it says Stephen King on those titles that we're holding up, but it also says writing as Richard Bachman. Thinner was first released as one of the Bachman books, the last of the original run of Richard Bachman. Richard Bachman, most people watching this, listening to this will know this because you follow Stephen King. Richard Bachman is Stephen King's famous pen name that he has returned to. But to begin with, he wrote under the pen name to escape being Stephen King. And we've talked about this already, but this is the order we're doing these in. So chronologically, we're up to Thinner, and then published after this was a collection of actually the first 4 novels written as Richard Bachman. We're going to talk about those in one go, and we'll talk more about the evolution, I guess, of and the backstory of Richard Bachman. But this is the book where he got busted.
Yeah, so this came out in 1984, and he got busted really early 1985 by some dude, right?
Yeah, that's right. We'll get into that next episode. But yeah, a journalist wrote, sort of investigated it, wrote some pieces about it. Some would say that Stephen King maybe was trying to get himself busted with the writing of Thinner.
It is very similar, like, it feels a lot like a Stephen King book. Like, there's a lot of other Richard Bachman books that feel very different in style. This one kind of doesn't. It feels very, like, it's got the same signature, like, tropes and all that.
And, I mean, we'll get into the other books, obviously, next time, but arguably none of them, they have elements of horror, but they're different sorts of books. They're more thrillers, they're more action, they're more, this is a good old-fashioned Stephen King-styled horror, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the big reveal is 100 pages into this book, he actually has one of the characters say, "Oh,
yeah, this is great.
This is almost starting to feel like a piece of dialogue is, this is starting to feel like the plot of a Stephen King novel." And so there's 2 schools of thought on this. What do you think? Some people think...
I think it's a cheeky little reference and it's really cool. And
some people think, because you've got to remember this is drug and alcohol era Stephen King, some people think he didn't realise what he was doing. I don't. I'm with you. He knew exactly what he was doing. And I don't know if he was trying to get found out, but he was having so much fun with it that I think he was saying, here I am, I'm hiding in plain sight. I'm here.
A lot, he's kind of seeing how much he can get away with. And, I mean, in a lot of other Richard Bachman books, like in the 4 Bachman books, which is what we're going to be talking about next episode, they're very, like, different in style, writing style, plot. This one just feels like a classic Stephen King book that he could have released under his own name.
Yeah.
It is quite silly, like, it's pretty stupid overall, but it's one of those things where Stephen King does really stupid, the other thing he does, like, silly things where you're like, oh, you kind of roll your eyes at it, but he proves you wrong and he immediately, like, makes it way better.
Thinking about this just before we started recording, that yes, it's silly, as we'll explain in a minute, but it was also written 40 years ago. So this sort of silliness that is in this has also been parodied a lot over by King himself and other people since, which is not to say that this was ever realistic or, sharper and smarter than it is now, but maybe audiences that received this 40 years ago, it was original, whereas now it's quite just silly and cliche.
So let's go into when we first discovered this story.
Yeah.
I read the book first, and I skimmed it a little bit for this podcast for like a second read, but I've mainly read it once, and it was probably like somewhere between like the 10th to 20th Stephen King book I read.
So it was a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I'd say about like late 2023 or something. So I read it back then, and only just recently have I watched the movie, and I'm so glad that we get to talk about a movie, because we've been 2 episodes with no movie, and now we've finally got a movie. I
read it, and it would have been this copy. Well, this is a different version of the book, but the same styled copy as this. And I love these hand-painted covers that came out in the 80s and 90s of Stephen King. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'm really pleased to have this one. I'm gonna hold up my other one actually. This is Thinner in Dutch.
So
And,
stupid.
I'm going to try and pronounce it. Die Verwerkling. So I obviously do not speak the language. I was working in a secondhand bookstore a couple of years ago. That is the first. If you've watched other episodes, you'll have seen I've got a couple of other books in other languages, and I'll have a couple more to go.
It's so dumb.
It is so dumb, and this is the one that started it.
So you've technically got one copy.
So I've technically got one copy, and
I
I've got
only
this.
have one copy. It is. I really like it though. It is one of those rainbow ones, as you can see the blue spine, awesome.
Which you're collecting.
Yeah, which I'm collecting. And this one though is actually hardback, and I've got a lot of hardback ones. I've shown off some. I think I've got like a 5-star one that I showed off, Cujo, stuff like that. But this one, this one's hardback, and we got like 20 of these hardbacks from like a Trade Me sale. It was like, I do prefer the paperback ones. One thing that's notable about this one though is that the background is black instead of white, and that is the same with all the Bachman ones.
Oh, nice.
So it's like a little reference to his Dark Half.
Yeah.
Which is like the name of another book, and it's like a reference to having two writers.
Yeah,
so
name, an alter ego. So I would have read this book around about 35 years ago. So a few years after it came out, but right in the thick of when I was first reading Stephen King. So late 80s, early 90s, probably early 90s. And I do remember the movie came out in, I think, 1996. I remember watching it when it came out. And then I've skimmed the book again, because the story is quite a simple story, and it's quite a short book, compared to where he went.
340 pages.
Yeah, it's a nice size book, like a standard sort of novel that you can, I remember reading this in a couple of days. Like, I was pretty hooked on this. And
same, yeah.
And the movie is an easy movie to watch too. It's quite so the story between the first reading of the book and the first watching of the movie, I remembered it enough. I'm really glad to have watched the film again, and I'm really glad to have skimmed parts of this and caught up on it again. So I remember really enjoying this at the time. I thought it was fun. Yeah, I definitely think it's way more silly now. I did think it was a bit silly at the time. I wasn't, but I was into it. Like I say, I hadn't read anything like it or heard any story like it. So we better talk a bit about the plot. So what happens in this story is, and we're going to use the term gypsy, which is sort of outmoded now, but it was current in the book. So we're just referencing. And it's
used a lot in this.
We're just using it because it's referenced in the book, and it was referenced in movies and books throughout the 80s. So there's a character, an overweight man called Billy Halleck. He runs over a gypsy from this community that are sort of painted, particularly in the film it's clear, in the book too I suppose, this community that are like, now you would say it's othering and it's racist, and I don't think that that's really what's trying to happen in the book, but they're definitely outsiders. And so then they set up this magical situation where one of the elders comes over and touches Billy's face and just says the word thinner, and that is the curse, because they've tried to cover up this death, right? Like, he's a lawyer, he's got friends that are lawyers, he
runs over a gypsy woman who, and then the gypsy woman's husband
is like the boss of the community, he's the elder, like he's the so they've got, it's King's writing with these, when we're talking about it now, it really does sound hokey because it is. And then also what's hokey is the actual idea of the curse is that, so this fat man has been on a diet and nothing's worked, and his wife wants him to lose weight, and almost immediately he starts losing weight because of this curse. And it takes a wee while for him to work out what's happening, but he's told you're going to lose weight really, really quickly, and he does.
Yeah, and it gets like crazy.
Yeah.
And one thing that's cool is that most of these chapter names is like his weight.
Dropping.
So he starts at 246 pounds, and then he goes down. And what's like the last?
So he gets dangerously underweight, and he gets
to around about like 127
Yeah.
pounds before the
Yeah.
story concludes.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I'd say, like, I really like the style of having like the weight as the chapter, but
Countdown.
I'm like used to, you know, kgs and stuff. That
Yeah.
pounds, like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
had
The
to think
American-
about it a bit.
The
So
American scale.
yeah.
It's kind of a fun, and I was reminded by this when rewatching the movie. It's kind of a fun action tale, and, and as much as it's a horror, it's really a kind of weird, dark comedy. You know?
Yeah, it's got some silly moments.
I guess the fear, the Stephen King's always traded in fear. That's really the essence of his horror. So there's a lot of fear in this. There's the fear of getting found out and the cover up, and then there's the fear of not being able to control what's happening to you and not understanding the curse. And obviously it's playing with this whole thing around this guy losing, he couldn't lose weight at all for trying. And now he's in this cursed situation where the thing that he wants, superficially, to lose weight is the thing that's going to kill him.
Yeah.
So, there's fun to be had in reading this, and I, rereading it, I thought there's still fun to be had in it, but you've got to really embrace the silliness of it, and the absurdity of it, and the lack of logic in it, and just suspend disbelief. And, when Stephen King's writing well, and some of the humour in this, and some of the way the lines sing, it can be quite easy to suspend disbelief. And then other times you think, God, I'm reading something that is actually impossibly stupid.
One thing I will say is that in the middle it does get a little bit boring.
Yeah.
And that is kind of when I lost interest on my reread.
Yeah.
I was super interested in rereading it, and then I was like, I got to around about, like page 200 or something, or like 150 or something, and I was like, oh, I've already read this and it's getting kind of boring, but I do remember the first read being really good. It is a good book. And I'm glad, because the last 2 episodes haven't been super positive.
Yeah, and as you said, they haven't had a movie adaptation as well.
This book is just, it's really fun, and I get why lots of people like it. Yeah.
I think what's probably held this book up over the years in a way too is the fact that this is what outed Richard Bachman as Stephen King. It has that about it where we'll talk about this, but Roadworks, for instance, doesn't have anything about it except it's part of the Bachman books. Others have, other stories have movies coming out, or movies have already been made, or controversy in other ways, which we'll all dig into. And this, the thing about this is the one that has the reference, he name drops himself, which he would go on to do in other books too. There are other characters in Stephen King books that are reading other Stephen King books and stuff. He really starts to get into the meta stuff.
So this is the last book that he wrote as Richard Bachman before he wrote 2 other ones in like the 2000s and stuff.
Where everyone knows.
Yeah, everyone knows.
Yeah.
And I think I'm right in saying that this is the only Richard Bachman book as of now that has gotten an adaptation, which is kind of wild. Since there are a lot of like good ideas.
Well, no, there is The Running Man, but it's so unfaithful.
Oh, right.
It's so unfaithful.
I forgot that. I forgot that. Yeah. One thing that I especially like Thinner for is the ending. This is one of the best endings in all of Stephen King books that I've read so far. Everyone goes on about how he doesn't have good endings, and I agree a lot of the time it's really, either downright bad or just kind of all is resolved.
Or he's overcooked it.
He's
overwritten it. Like even things like It, they're just a bit long and the ending can't keep up with everything else that's happened.
So, spoiler alert, this is the first time we're really spoiling it. So he goes to the gypsy camp thing, and he goes on a rampage, and then he talks to the man who gave the curse, and he gives him this is stupid, this part, but it's still kind of fun. He gives him this pie, and he's like, you have to put your blood into it, and then
I'll lift the curse,
yeah,
but the condition is you put your blood into this pie and you give it to someone,
and they inherit the curse.
Yeah.
And he's gone crazy, and he wants his wife to eat it.
Yeah.
So he goes back home, and he puts out the pie for his wife to eat. But then the plot twist is that his daughter also eats the pie, and it's just like, it is a big punch in the gut. The ending, it's great.
You're right. It's kind of, thinking about it, it's kind of like, it feels like the sort of ending of like the classic horror stories that King would have read, you know, growing up with it. It feels like a horror short story ending to a horror novel.
It's like a huge plot twist.
Yeah.
It's and Stephen King doesn't really do that type of ending.
And it works really, really well. And it's an exciting fun end to a short enough, sharp enough novel. So it's contained well.
Yeah, and it's a pretty solid, fun page turner. It's not too long, not too short. It's
what would
really,
you rate
really
it?
good. I'm going to give it a solid little 7 out of 10. Nothing,
Nice.
like, I don't find it incredible, but I do find it really solid, and I'm glad that we're talking about it. So yeah, 7 out of 10. That is a lot higher than what I gave the last book. This is a positive rating. I really like this book.
Yeah, I had a lot of nostalgia revisiting this. I've always held on to the idea that this was a fun story, as I've said, you know, here. There are better written books, of course. You know, there are things that are held up better than this in a lot of ways. But for what this is, it works. I will give it a 6.5.
Nice.
I think it's worth reading. It's funny, it's silly, it's engaging. It's the main thing, and it's not a chore like we've found, particularly the Talisman, and even to a degree, Eyes of the Dragon was a little bit of a chore. So the movie came out, a full decade after the book, and it arrives in, by this point, just an absolute glut of Stephen King material. They're just, movie-wise, they've started making several movies of the short stories. They're even making, you know, non-canon, unconnected sequels. We've got Botched Lawnmower Man that he had to sue for to sort of try and prove it's got nothing to do with his story. Then there's a sequel to Lawnmower Man. There's all the Children of the Corn sequels that are going on. He was such a hot property, people were just trying to attach themselves to him. So somewhere in there, someone decides to make Thinner. Now, the person who makes Thinner has pretty good horror credentials. What's his name again? The director is Tom Holland, who directed and co-wrote the original Child's Play.
Child's Play is
classic.
one of my favourite horror movies of all time. It's in my top 5. I love Child's Play so much. And the original, so good.
I don't think this one is held in anywhere near as high a regard, but to prove his horror credentials, in the 80s he made Psycho 2, which obviously was a big event in terms of a sequel. It's a cult film, you know, it flopped in a lot of ways, but I watched Psycho 2 before I watched Psycho, so I have a fondness for that. So I didn't know until I rewatched this that it was the same.
Is Psycho 2 good at all?
Well, I liked it, and I think I would recommend watching it.
Because I've seen Psycho and I love Psycho, but
you'll be disappointed by it because you know it's not classic.
Also, you forgot Fright Night.
Which is a horror classic.
Pretty good. I mean, I watched that when I was a lot younger. I probably would like it more now. But,
so good horror credentials going into this. He knows how to make a horror film. This is quite a funny horror film.
It's really faithful to the book. It's really faithful to the book.
Moves along nicely.
It's not too long. It's about 90 minutes.
Yeah. So what do we think of this?
It's really good in my opinion. Well, not really good, but it was a good
decent
watch.
And it was fun.
And you know, it was better than I expected. I expected it to be quite boring and dull and, you know, dated. And yeah, it is dated. Like the fat suit looks pretty ridiculous at the very start.
Yeah. And you've got the whole, you know, what we talked about with the book. You've got this whole representation of gypsies and stuff, which just would not fly today. And so there's that too. It is a very mid-90s looking movie. It reminded me, I guess it came out at the same time, it did remind me of watching The Frighteners, the Peter Jackson film, that kind of thing where, the effects are a little hokey, the makeup's a little hokey. Some of those practical effects in the 80s actually look better than some of what they were trying to do with special effects and stuff in the 90s. But it's a fun film.
And the thing is that it is really faithful.
So who have we got in this film? Joe Montana is a classic character actor. People will know him as the voice of the mob boss on The Simpsons, of course.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he pops up in all sorts of things. I didn't know too many other people in this, but you know, yeah, it's a big production, nice score. You know, it just plays like a classic movie that you can easily sit down with. I thoroughly enjoyed my rewatch of this. I've only seen it the 2 times, so way back 30 years ago or thereabouts when it was released, and just the other night.
Yeah, another thing I will say is that the acting is also not great in some places.
So, yeah, that's
like
true.
there's that one scene where he goes and visits that like woman. Because there's another. We forgot to mention this. He knows this other guy who has like the skin condition thing.
That's a curse as well.
Yeah, and he gets cursed by the gypsy because he also helped cover up the death.
Yeah.
And like, so in the movie he goes and visits the wife of that dude, and she's like, oh, it's the gypsies, and she's like screaming and crying and pouring water all over him, and it's like, it's really over
That
the top.
was very TV movie to me, particularly that scene.
It feels quite like Friday the 13th acting.
Yeah, very TV movie, very, But, you know, horror films get away with that. This is not a frightening horror film. This is not a gory horror film. It's horror by association. I mean, there's not really any huge gore
jump
in it.
scares
No.
or any.
Yeah, but it is weirdly just this for how absurd it is quite a compelling story, and that, you know, you're pulled along by it. You're like, you want to see it play out and how they do it.
They also represent the ending really, really well.
Yeah, that's like nice tension.
Yeah, and it just wraps it up really good as well, and it just, you know, adds a nice touch yet again. I was
a good point
expecting it to be like a bit different or something. You know, I was expecting them to go with a bit of a less dark ending. Yeah. And it just wraps up really good.
That's a good point, because actually in the whole Stephen King film canon, some of the endings are more disappointing than some of the endings of his books, where people try to, because they lose the faithfulness, they try to do something different, and things are quite hokey. So, I don't know, what would you rate this film?
I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. So, I gave the book a 7 out of 10, and I give this one a 6 out of 10, this movie. So, you know, I think the book is a bit better, but, you know, they're both quite solid and quite close together. It's a really... I don't think they could have made a better, thinner movie.
For that, in that era. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to actually give it a 7 out of 10.
So you think it's better than the book?
Wow, I just realised what I did there, but no, I think I am going to give it a 7 out of 10 because I had a real enjoyment factor revisiting it. I actually didn't remember liking it much at the time. I thought it was okay. Watching it the other night, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm, you know, even for these faults that we've pointed out, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I quite like a trashy film. So I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10, which might seem crazy, but I gave the book 6.5.
I don't disagree with I mean, I don't agree with like it being better than the book, but you know, it's close. It is really
it's so close. So that's Thinner, and then we've got a whole lot more Bachman to talk about. So next episode is going to be the Bachman books. That's what it's called, by Stephen King.
So this was published in 1985, so that's why we're doing it.
Do we remember the dates off the top of our head, thereabouts, of when the books originally came out?
So Rage was 1977.
Yeah.
What
79
else?
for The Long Walk.
79 for The Long Walk.
82 for
82.
The Running Man.
And I think 81 for
81 for Roadwork. So those are the 4 novels. They are full length. They are short in the, you know, in as big as King would go. They are the size of Thinner, you know, and smaller. They are short. Rage is arguably a novella. They are shorter works. That's why they're jammed into about 900 pages. As the Bachman books, I read them in one go, like it was in order, like it was a book when I first read it.
Yeah.
When you hear from us next, we will have like revisited this.
Currently. So I read like The Long Walk at the very start of my Stephen King journey, so I didn't have the idea of like the Bachman books, and I read The Running Man. I tried to read it. Well, I won't say that. That's a spoiler. You know, I read The Long Walk at the start, and I read Rage twice now because I reread it for the podcast. I've also read The Long Walk twice because I reread it for the podcast. I read The Running Man quite a few months ago, and like even unrelated to the podcast, and I'm reading Roadwork currently for the very first time as preparation for the podcast. I've never read it.
And I'm just getting into revisiting them, all of which I read way back in the day and haven't read since. So I am excited to be reading the Bachman books again, and we will be talking to you about those books, that publication in one volume, and all of the things that have happened around that. It's been republished. There's been some controversies. People will know what we're talking about. That's our next episode. So if you think that's weird that we're talking about Thinner first, I feel like we signposted that a wee while ago, but we're just doing
it. It is a bit weird.
We're doing it in a chronology.
There's no way we would be able to talk about Roadwork for one episode. No, there's no way.
Yeah. So that was Thinner, and it was, as you said, it was nice to be a bit more positive about this author that we're dedicated to in the podcast. So that was nice to have a good book.
So thanks for tuning in. That was Thinner. See you in the next episode.